Harold McGinty had always been sensitive to sound. As a boy in Dinnington, he'd heard the mine workings 2 miles underground, the distant rumble that older residents claimed was just the motorway, though the M1 was still 20 years from being built. After the pit closed in '92, the village had grown quiet. Too quiet, some said. Harold found the silence unsettling, like a held breath that never quite released. That's when he discovered high-fidelity audio. It began innocently enough. A Technics turntable from the electrical shop in Sheffield. Nothing elaborate. But when Harold first heard Mahler's Fifth through proper speakers, something stirred in him. A hunger for clarity, for truth hidden in the spaces between notes. His wife Vera tolerated it at first. The music was pleasant and Harold seemed happier pottering with his equipment than he had since the redundancy. But tolerance is a finite resource. The turntable required better speakers. The speakers demanded a proper amplifier. The amplifier needed isolation feet, gold-plated cables, a dedicated power supply. Each component promised to reveal what the previous setup had masked. Some essential frequency just beyond perception. Harold began speaking in specifications, signal-to-noise ratios, harmonic distortion. The names of Japanese engineers who'd achieved legendary status among those who understood such things. Vera watched their savings drain away like water through limestone. The equipment filled their front room, then colonised the back bedroom. Black monoliths that hummed with purpose, their LED displays casting sickly light across walls that had once displayed wedding photographs. Harold's listening sessions grew longer. He'd sit motionless for hours, eyes closed, following some thread of sound that seemed to lead deeper into the recordings, and deeper into himself. "What exactly are you listening for?" Vera asked one evening, finding him rigid in his chair at 3 a.m. Harold's eyes opened slowly as if surfacing from great depths. "The truth," he said simply. "It's all there in the silences. You just have to know how to hear it." The neighbours complained about the volume, though Harold insisted he never played anything loudly. Mrs. Robbins from next door mentioned hearing strange harmonics at all hours. Not music exactly, but something underneath it, like voices in a language she couldn't place. Harold dismissed this. Untrained ears, he explained to Vera, couldn't distinguish between authentic reproduction and their own acoustic confusion. But privately, he'd begun to hear it too. Whispers in the track breaks, conversations bleeding through from adjacent frequencies. Sometimes, late at night, he caught fragments of what sounded like mining songs. The old ones his grandfather used to hum, from deep underground where men worked in spaces no wider than coffins. The village had its own acoustic memory, Harold realised. Every sound that had ever been made in Dinnington was still there, layered like sediment. The laughter of pit wives hanging washing, children playing in streets that no longer existed. The final shift bell that had ended 120 years of coal. His equipment was sensitive enough now to detect these impressions. That's all it was. Science, not superstition. Vera found him one morning surrounded by technical manuals, scribbling calculations she couldn't understand. The room smelled of heated electronics and something else, something organic, like earth after rain. "Harold," she said gently, "perhaps we should talk to someone." He looked up, and for a moment she didn't recognise him. His eyes held a depth that seemed almost geological. "They're still here," he whispered. "All of them. The men who went down and never came up. They're trying to tell us something." The doctor was kind but firm. Auditory hallucinations weren't uncommon in men Harold's age, particularly those who'd experienced industrial noise exposure. The brain, deprived of familiar sounds, sometimes invented its own. Harold nodded politely and took the prescribed medication, but that night he threw the pills away and returned to his listening chair. Vera woke to find the house completely quiet. No electrical hum, no LED displays. Harold had disconnected everything. He sat in perfect stillness, hands folded, facing the blank wall where his speakers had stood. "I can hear them now," he said without turning around. Without all the equipment, they're much clearer in the quiet. She asked what they were saying, and Harold smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him in months. "They're singing," he said. "The old songs from before the accident, before the seam collapsed and took 37 men down into the dark." Vera checked the local history. There had indeed been a disaster at Dinnington, Maine. In 1909, 3 years before Harold's grandfather was born. 37 men lost in a methane explosion. Their bodies never recovered. She found Harold that evening in the same position, still listening to his perfect silence. When she touched his shoulder, he didn't respond. The doctor said it was likely a stroke, quick, painless. But his hearing somehow remained perfect. His eyes would track sounds she couldn't detect, following conversations in empty air, nodding along to music that played only for him. Now Vera sits in Harold's listening chair sometimes, trying to understand what held him so completely. The house is quiet, properly quiet for the first time in years, but occasionally, in the deep hours before dawn, she thinks she hears it too. Faint singing from somewhere underground, voices calling from spaces that were sealed long before she was born. She's learned not to listen too carefully. Some silences, she understands now, are crowded places.